Okay, the troll, that's actually pretty interesting. Of course, TA's heyday in the mid lane is definitely over, but I wonder if Hokori are going to feel pressured enough that maybe we don't want to have a carry TA where the troll could just always run you down. And yet again, Force Gamers go for this troll in a very forcing position where it's definitely a problem Hokori now have to kind of solve here. The problem is their lanes feel pretty good if you ignore the troll. The TA Ogre lane is very difficult to beat, and Techie's Mars, I don't think you're going to be able to really put too much pressure with Ogre kind of being the stopper in that lane. But it's how happy are you going to be with your core matchups here if Akori do nothing about this draft?
Yeah, the troll could sort of give them problems across the board. They've got a little bit of lockdown to maybe keep him at arm's length, but I don't know if I'd feel overly confident in it. But that might be where Vitali comes into play a little bit here. Some of his favorite heroes have been taken away, but looking at some options, you do have something like the Beastmaster that's still in the pool at this point. Well, the Venomancer was there, but Four Zoomers will take that one away. So the pool is narrowing, but I feel like there's still going to be something Vitali can sort of put to use. Maybe not as a damage dealer at this point, but certainly helping out in terms of control and team fight.
Yeah, and I do agree with Four Zoomers here. I think it's going to have to be a little bit more lane oriented. There's not really a Centaur pick, I want to say. That'd be a really far reach just because well, Centaur Weaver, it feels like nobody can really do their job there. You're kind of just throwing out damage and hoping that something hits. It's where maybe having a hero like the Rubik or the Rana would have felt nicer, I think, in this draft. But I think that's also where, if they really need to, there's still a Tidehunter in the pool. They could go for that very simply, but then you really are just throwing everything, conceding the lane towards Costabile, and that's a little bit scary, giving Costabile a free lane. We've seen Trolls skyrocket in the net worth, especially since everyone's just going for the Battle Fury build now. Nobody's playing around with the Maelstrom, so you're seeing maybe the timing's pushed out a little bit, but a Troll Warlord that has that fast BKB timing feels just as strong, and hey, they're not even going to let him
Tide
get the
ban.
tide. So, I mean, they're just right where they need to be because, well, now what do you want to play? You can't really pick Beastmaster here. You can't really pick Pit Lord, I want to say, just because it feels a little bit ugly. It feels like, again, you're going to be forced into way too passive of a position. I don't know if it's pickable, but I would love if they would be able to pick maybe Enigma. But I feel like that is really out of left field, and I also feel like that is the last tier of Vitali's going to want to play on purpose.
I'm not sure you could really get away with that one. And like you said, yeah, Vitali may just nix that plan altogether. So you said, the Beastmaster is not really a hero you can pick. Don't really know what else they have at their disposal. Sand King sort of popped into my head, but I think that gets punished too easily. Oh,
Okay.
all right. Kind of a hero that I had honestly forgot about, but the Brewmaster getting back in, and yesterday during that first game, F was sort of hyping up the Brew pick a little bit more as someone who could be newly discovered or rediscovered after the changes in the patch. So see if Vitali can, well, prove Neff to be a prophet, but that does, it works pretty well for them, honestly. They get control, they get some durability. You do have to work around the very long cooldown of the Primal Split, though, pre-Aghanim Scepter, but that was something Hokori may have already been preparing for, considering the Kunkka and the Ghost Ship is maybe not quite the same length of cooldown, but a similar time frame.
No, definitely. And now it's just going to be a matter of whether or not your Brewlings can survive. We'll have to see how he plays versus that Techies. I think the silence is actually going to be a little bit brutal to play versus, but that's where, as we see with Brewmasters, it's as much about the Ag's timing as it is about getting your Aeon Disc, just so you have a Dispel, your Lotus Orb, and I think that's where we might see another very early Nullifier pickup, as so many teams are looking at that item and saying, well, that kind of changes the game for a lot of our heroes here, especially if Omni Knight's going to be as popular as it is, even though it's been ignored in this draft.
Ooh,
And okay, is that
are
a
they
Gunner
switching?
Morph? No, yeah.
No.
Okay, they're swapping it up. It's going to be Costabile. Morph and Gunner's going to take the Troll mid, I'm assuming. Yeah. Okay. That's still very interesting, though. I guess this is not a lane we've seen, I think, in this entire tournament, nor have I seen in a very long time. Previously, Topson the only guy kind of man enough to take the troll warlord to the mid lane where, you know, you get bottle, you're just spamming your axes constantly, but
They are
and then they swap
switching.
lanes again.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yuma
Well,
Kunkka analog TA. So we were kind of downplaying that possibility, but I think the move that For Zoomers just made with the Morphling kind of forces their hand a little bit more.
hmm.
Hmm. Well, I truly have no idea how a TA versus Troll Warlord lane goes, ET. I don't think I've ever seen that before. So it is going to be an interesting one, but to a certain extent, we talk about this all the time with Gunnar. He goes into matchups where he's not supposed to be favored and often sort of comes away with a draw or better anyway, so would not be surprised to see him pull out something in the early stages.
Yeah, and hey, I think this might even be a reactive pick where they're like, okay, the Brewmaster, that might be a little bit too effective at kiting our troll here. So we swap you. We switch it up. The only trap that I hope for Zoomers haven't fallen in is just whenever you put Gunner on, well, not a mid laner or a traditional one. I'm getting echoes back to when they shoved him on the gyrocopter. Sometimes it hits and sometimes it really doesn't. And it's where you feel almost like maybe his talents are being wasted a little bit by just shoving him on the troll warlord, and we'll have to see if this morph is really going to pay off
Hero
here.
washed up.
At the same time, last overall pick morph, he has nothing to worry about this game. He's got a great lane versus the Brewmaster, and really he's got very little to worry about aside from maybe a spirit vessel coming from the Kunkka,
There's a
but
snake
at the
in
same time, that's
Moorlands.
a lot of gold. That's a lot of
Very
time. He just
strange.
doesn't have really another predator in this game. He's going to have a really easy time just farming in his own jungle.
Yeah, I just don't really see a lot of opportunities for a push onto the Morphling, as you said, as Theolacor doing a little bit of scouting here at the very start. He's got the Shikuchi just to bail out once he sees that many heroes up there, and the thing about this that's going to kind of suck for Hokori, they have no idea, I think, that this ward is now here. He went up the ramp. He could have just assumed that that was hero vision and really not check for it. Although, you know, in fairness, that's an obvious ward spot. It's going to get checked eventually, but be not early enough for it to not still have that effect. As we see this ward again, ET. The South American squads, they love this ward spot so much, and to be honest, every time I see it, kind of makes me like it a little bit more. It's just so much information, and very rarely does this ward actually get dewarded.
No, and I like to call it the infamous ward just because I think they're the first team that really started doing it, even back when the map was slightly different and you had to cut a tree to make it feel even better. But it's just in a really nice place. You just get to see exactly what you want. And most importantly, even though it doesn't always come into play, just seeing onto the dire high ground a little bit is just invaluable information in case you are getting contested. But hey, it's a quiet start to this game. Four Zoomers do get 3 of the 4 runes, though.
Slight economic advantage, you know. That is always the thing. The bounty runes there, it's the first sort of objective that spawns. You always want to hype it up. The actual gold you get is negligible. But, in fairness, the best kind of gold to get is the gold that you directly steal from your opponents. So, in that regard, it's always going to be nice to get that little head start. As down on the bottom lane, going to be interesting to see how this plays out. You've got Z-Freak here on the techies. He is going to want to be, as position 4 heroes usually are, as annoying as possible. The problem is you're going up against Gardic on the Ogre, so if he just continues to play forward, if he does what Ogre tends to do and just stands there as a beefy individual, you're not going to get really any significant pressure directly onto Yuma. Although, as I say that, they do get him up with the bomb there, but that's a level 1 bomb, not really going to do too much damage.
Yeah, and we'll see how Z-Freak's improved at actually getting that bomb to stick, because yesterday, especially early on in the laning phase, it's again a little bit of a finicky spell. It's something you gotta train up a little bit, but I think that's also where Hokori, this is their first game versus the techies. They have to deal with the annoyance, not to mention that level 2 in that spell. I think really once we see for this 4 Zoomer side hit level 3 here, we're going to get a lot more aggression. And even Gardic, he's got to be careful whenever this creep surplus is just in here hitting him. And Moo actually went for a really early point in the bulwark, I guess scared of the Tidebringer harass, but at the same time, you just don't have Spear now, so it's an interesting way to build yourself up here, but Again, that's where Force Zoomers, they're very happy with drawing their lanes. They know how to play for their later timings. They're not going to feel too sad about maybe conceding a little bit of aggression in the first few minutes of this game.
Yeah, and maybe that's a little bit what we were sort of talking about earlier with the perceived lack of pressure directly onto Yuma, although they are hitting him pretty hard. Mu basically saying, you know what? We don't really have a lot of kill potential right now. Point up in Bulwark at level 2 means, you know, I don't get harassed out of lane by a Tiebringer, so we'll just sort of play it a little bit more slowly, and by the time Mu hits 3 or 4, that point in the Bulwark really isn't going to matter much. He'll still have the spear, although right now, he's taking a fair bit of damage from that little maneuver. They get the stun into the Torrent, but, well, they really aren't going to be able to push the Mars too significantly here, although as I say that, Gardic faking it out a little bit, but he popped the mango for that, so they were looking. Now we're going to have a bit of a pause, unfortunately. Bit of an issue maybe on the 4-zoomer side, but yeah, I keep looking at this and neither side's backing away. They're still trying, you know, and you always should just in case somebody makes a mistake, but it seems unlikely that anything really goes down there.
Just a waiting game. We need to wait till he gets maybe, again, a point up in spear, and then we could see the ties turn, but until then, it is just going to be Yuma farming incredibly quickly, and he's just going for the armlet buildup, you know? He's done this many times in the tournament already, as we've seen every safe lane come pretty much go for, but we've eaten a lot of harass actually now. But it's just harass. Nobody can finish off these kills, especially without an X in, a skill point in the X. Yuma just doesn't have control.
In the meantime, there's a deep push from Gunnar there actually to get the bounty rune, so that was a priority that, or excuse me, a move that hadn't really been prioritized from a lot of mid laners previously, going after those bounties deep in their jungle, but Gunnar wanted the refill, and so far you look at the last hit count for Gunnar, 20 and 4 compared to the 24 and 4 for Analog on the TA, so really not all that much in the way of direct separation. Gunnar's been doing pretty good, and well, this early on, your TA, you can't really just bully this Troll Warlord. He's got too much HP and too much sort of offensive firepower himself is down bot. Z-Freak is going to get a little bit caught out. They may not have had the damage to go on to Mu, but the Techies is a very different story.
Yeah, and hey, moments like these where you miss the deny. You miss that you don't have that ability to just throw everything out and get that easy reset. But at the same time, yeah, back at mid, Gunnar, he's been doing a pretty good job here. A few of those last hits are from Analog playing in the small camp, so they're really more or less completely even. But at the same time, it's going to get to a point here where Gunnar just has to commit mana to push out the creep wave, where Analog is really good for that much freer. But okay, gotta be careful, yeah. Gunnar's playing around the timing of refraction, but that's still a lot of HP missing there. But as well, Gunnar's gotten a few more bottle refills, and a bottle refill coming in from Husky. It just feels like they're putting in a little bit more resource into the Troll, as Analog is a little bit more hung out to dry, as they are kind of sticking in their lanes more so on the Hokori side.
Yeah, I've not seen a lot of movement from them to this point. Analog, well, we'll see whether or not he actually suffers from that. Right now his regen is not in a good situation, but Courier comes to deliver a little bit more, and that should stabilize that situation. As what's going on up in the top lane? It's been relatively quiet to this point. There was a moment earlier on where Vitaly and Theolacor were sort of pushing in onto Gustavle, but they can't break through the attribute shift just yet. He's got 2 points up in it really for that exact reason. And so long as there's a tango or a salve between him and Husky, you can just do the attribute sort of manipulation and heal yourself up. But in this instance, Vitaly doesn't really care that much. This is a lane where I think he knew he wasn't going to shut the Morphling down, so he's just here for his own farm and experience. He's kind of behind experience-wise by about a half a level compared to the Morphling, but he is allowed to fly solo for now as Theolacor has shifted away. And Theolacor, I think he's trying to sort of get in for the contest on the rune spawn, but it did spawn all the way down to the south, and the good news for Hokori is that Analog is going to be the one to pick it up. And
yeah, he
not losing
doesn't
it yet.
actually bottle it, though.
It's a little bit weird. There we go. Now he'll lose that regen. And yeah, as you said, he had the bottle, but didn't swap it into his actual inventory. So I don't know if that was just he forgot or if he really didn't want to bother with the bottle at this point, but Seems very strange. Not something you see every day there, but either way, he keeps it out of Gunner's hands. I think that's going to be really more important than anything else. But now down in the bottom lane, got a rotation coming in. Husky has arrived. Scouted out the whole way, though. They know he's here, but it may not matter. Gardic is going to get hit up by the bomb, but... Ooh, not level 6 yet. Without the arena, they don't feel fully comfortable diving the tower with Yuma still there.
Yeah, and not really worth the mana, just throwing out a spear that you don't know if it's going to hit. You would have been forced into a dive as well, and Yuma might have been able to take one of the 4 Zoomers down with him, so it would have been, I think, too big of a risk for them to throw away a lane that's more or less been static. Just no reason to do so, but you are dragging a lot of heroes on the 4 Zoomer side. You're keeping anyone out of the Morphling's lane, so they're almost retroactively winning Costabilia's lane even harder just by having everyone play in the Radiant Triangle, or Radiant Jungle here, but well, Zephric's getting pulled. Yep.
There's the X, the Torrent will be there. Husky's going to try to come in to help with the Nightmare defensively, and that is buying time for Gunner to join. Maybe they could turn this fight around. Zephyr actually still isn't even dead yet. They need to just finish him off. They will get the kill. But it's going to cost them Gardic, and now with Gunner here, Yuma needs to get away, but he's going to get slowed up by the Whirling Axis, tries for the Torrent. Gunner's able to sidestep it, but it creates just enough separation. Yuma can walk away, and it turns into a one-for-one trade where really it felt like Hokori should have just been able to get the kill on the techies and get out, but that defensive Nightmare just really turns things around.
Yeah, and that's also where Gunner building himself up. He's going for the really early Diffusal Blade, and again, it's just hat item being that much cheaper, the effect being just available so much sooner. I love to see it from him, especially because it just is brutal versus the Kunkka.
The smoke, he didn't get close enough. This is going to be a problem, but they're actually going on to move before Gunner can arrive, so this is kind of similar to the last scenario that we saw where both sides are moving in for the fight. Just a matter of who strikes first. As Mu is on the run, he's going to get hit up by a second charge from the urn. That is enough to take him down. And now Gunner, he had the angle, he just didn't quite get there in time. Now there's 4 heroes in this bottom lane, and this is not a place where 4 Zoomers really want to fight unless they can catch someone really out on their own, but that's really the worst hero. The Hokori is not going to be locked down at all, and he'll simply Shikuchi away.
Yeah, they have to run. They have to still have that separation, because if they get caught, their lineup really can't hold up at this stage. But hey, Yuma's got his armlet finished. You are definitely playing a little bit heavy here in the bottom area as the highlight. Yeah, I think they need to spread out a little bit more, because whenever they rotate everyone bottom and it isn't just outwardly successful, then, well, you're farming very quickly on the Hokori side, and they might get a nice kill onto Gardic here. There's really no way for him to survive. Just no boots. There's not really any hope for him. But look over at the other sides. It's double tower pressure. And I think 4 Zoomers need to be very careful with how they trade this out. It'd be really nice if they get this tower, but at the same time, they're also playing versus Glyph. So they're a little bit behind the exchange.
See how this all sort of shakes out if they can actually keep pressure on. 4 Zoomers are still just going after the tower. Not really a whole lot to deter them at the moment, considering they've got 3 heroes here, and the mid push kind of fell apart a little bit, although Husky, he is going to get spotted. He'll look for the quick TP out, and I don't know if he doesn't make it. Analog started things off with the meld, gets the further right clicks in, and they will take the Bane down, while Yuma was able to make that tower trade happen up top.
Yeah, just easy, 1-for-1, get the objectives off the deck. But that's also where Analog, who's just sat in his lane more, is starting to run away in CS a little bit. And even though mana-wise, he still has to deal with the kind of not obnoxious aspect of not having his bounty rune, it's still really easy for him to make that rotation in the triangle. And, well, this is also obnoxious. The Cinder Broom max, and not even the max, that's just 2 points, but just does so much damage. And Vitaly's just brute forcing your tower down with Analog, and well, how do you approach this? You need to run in with the arena. Baron doesn't have his Diffu yet, but this is a little bit of a force.
Gunner might be in some serious trouble here. They get the tornado up onto the Mars, so there's no arena coming out just yet. That forces the ult from Gunner, but now they're going to try to pull him further away from his backup. Good play from Z-Freak to try and get in there to help, but it's not going to be enough. Gunner's taken down, and now here comes Yuma into the fight. Drops the X down into the Torrent. Z-Freak will fall, and that tower will be taken down. Vitaly, that is a big ult in a very key situation that keeps Hokori's momentum going.
No, I think they just kind of overestimated their damage, and as much as you can praise what 4 Zoomers have been able to get with their lineup, one thing they severely lack is safe wave clear. They're really not able to approach. You saw Gunner there attempting to throw out the whirling axes to try and slow down the push, but until Costabile is actually able to provide a lot of the damage here, it's very difficult to get Hokori off of your buildings until they have just, again, some of that more raw damage coming in from their carry. And without that, I think maybe just an overextension in the defense. They still have Arena, so that's why they're looking for a little bit of a revenge play. And oh, doesn't hit the Nightmare and Theliocor, so he just gets to walk away. But they need to find something, I think, with Mu, because right now, looking at his skill build as well, he's got the armlet. He's playing for rebuke damage more so than the spear, but it just means that it's going to be a little bit harder to make those plays. And Husky, he's raring to go. He's got 3 points of Nightmare. He has Fiend's Grip, but until they find a play, it just means that you're going to get out-farmed currently by Hokori.
Let's see if they can get onto Theolacor here, but he's not going to take that bait. Staying back, he just suspects that someone's... not suspects, he knows. That's just a straight-up obs ward that I did not see before. So he has full vision over that. He is just going to sit back and waste poor Zoomer's time. And, well, now they're going to maybe fall back and start farming up a little bit. But at least in terms of the support here, as you see Husky, he's just standing here. There's not a whole lot that he's doing, not scouting, not getting vision right now. So it's nice for 4Zoomers to be getting farm on their cores, but look over at the other side of things. Analog and Yuma still sitting at 1 and 2, so they're playing a much more efficient game than their opponents right now, and they may look for this kill. Gunner needs backup. Husky's going to come in. That Nightmare will come through. That allows him to dodge the Torrent. That's a very nice play, and now with the Haste Rune activated, Gunner's just going to run out of here.
Yeah. He shouldn't get caught again. He's still playing for his defusal timing. Once he has it, then that's something that Yuma needs to be very careful about. We've seen sometimes what happens with this Kunkka hero is he does just get run down, but Yuma has boots of travel. He is really farmed for this stage of the game here. They're definitely going to look to get more and more active. And really, the biggest problem for 4Zoomers that I kind of have right now is once this fight ends up taking place near the Roche pit, how they actually get past the TA traps without a Blink Dagger on Mu, with kind of having to run at their opponents, how successful is that really going to be? And really, how they deal with the split is going to be incredibly important. But okay, Husky, I think this is going to be a nice kill. Yep, they give up. Yumo's going to come in, but he knows.
Who's going to be able to grab that kill? And yeah, that's just a bit unfortunate. Husky's going to catch him out. Your Fiend's Grip does go down there, but that is a pretty valuable kill for them to pick up. One I think for Zoomers maybe not desperately needed, but certainly wanted, not just for the actual gold, but now Husky's got a chance to maybe clear out this north side jungle a little bit more, because prior to that kill, Vitali had just been sitting in that jungle farming away.
Yeah, and 2 components away from Ags, and the Brew is also really farmed, and he doesn't need that many items before he starts to become a very big problem that you have to deal with if you're 4Zoomers, as well as Deso on Analog just more or less being accomplished. So the fight is going to end up around the pit. I just wonder if 4Zoomers are going to be prepared to take it, because what could very likely happen at the same time if Hokori aren't careful and perhaps lose Analog early on in that engagement, 4Zoomers can very easily just swing a damaged Roche into their own. It's what Troll and Morphling just do so well. They just provide so much in terms of just raw DPS, but this is where the question's going to get asked. How do you get past these TA traps? How do you get into the pit versus Brew split? Because they're just going to go immediately in with the Deso.
Yep. Now that Desolator is completed, they can just really kind of burn their way through this as the double meld comes into play. The armor reduction, even the swarm being thrown out, so that beetle is going to be making that a little bit easier. But now the scan from 4Zoomers, they know this is happening, but what can they do about it? Here comes Mu, but he doesn't have a blink. There's no immediate in. They can't get it. Analog grabs the Aegis, and this could get a little bit awkward. Vitali is going to get hit up here. If they could lock him down before the split, that would be fantastic, but they can't.
Oh, no.
He's going to be able to get it off. Now the Torrent comes in. The Ghost Ship is going to follow. They do Nightmare Yuma on that backside, but not before he got that boat off. So Mu, he's going to get taken down. Gunner's been thrown in the air by the Cyclone. And Costabile, he's going to try and make something happen, but look at the Theolacor. He marches in, gets a second kill in the fight. Gunner now isolated as he tries to pop the ult, but there's that Torrent, throwing him up in the air. The ult's going to wear off. Gunner will be taken down. Husky trying for the Fiend's Grip play, but it's on to Theolacor of all people, so they're not really taking the damage out of the equation. And Hokori will continue their march forward. Costabile just trying his best in the backline, but since he's gone Max Agi, he's got to be very careful about his own HP. Husky will fall. They do burn the Aegis, and they get a second kill here. They are getting heroes respawning and TPing in. But Moo, ooh, that's an awkward spot. He actually TP'd into a place where he has to walk backwards to get out of the tree line, but they're still going to be able to get the spear stun onto Gardic. They will take him down, and all things considered, ET, that is not a terrible fight for 4-Zoomers, but it is far from a victory either.
No, and really, it would have looked much better if they got that silence. If the blast off is just a few seconds earlier, then that's what comes out late. And Mu, as much as you can harp on him for not having a blink dagger, when he does armlet rebuke, those Brewlings were dying incredibly quickly, and that's what him and Gunnar were really focused on in their arena. So Vitaly didn't really get to play the maximum advantage you have with that hero. And hey, Costabile didn't die. He's still a big winner of that fight. He got the majority of those kills, and that's a problem that you don't solve with the TA the later this game goes. Not to mention, you lost the Aegis pretty much as soon as you got it. So the game state doesn't really change for Hokori. And as this morph builds up more and more, I want to say 4-Zoomers are going to feel like they're in a much better spot. And, well, the mines. It's got to be a constant concern for them. Not to mention, Z-Freak also has the Axe Shard built up now. So any engagement where you get that chain stun, that setup with the Nightmare, it could just be a dead hero off the bat.
Yeah, that is going to be a little bit more that I think Hokori may not be ready for at the moment, because you take a look at their heroes. Analog looking for a blink dagger. Vitaly's not quite done with his Ags. Yuma is going back now to try and finish off that halberd, which means we do not have a BKB in sight for any of those core Hokori heroes. So all of a sudden, Z-Freak becomes that much more dangerous. Speaking of danger, that would have been a dangerous play if that were the actual Gardic. Instead, it's an illusion that gets trapped up inside of the arena, and Moo might feel ever so slightly embarrassed on that play. So, arena down. Gonna have to wait a little while longer to push in with that play, but while they would love to have arena, I don't think they necessarily require it. If the Bane can catch somebody out, if Z-Freak with that shard can get the jump on someone, they still have the ability to make plays. It's just going to look a lot less comfortable, although at this point, the Hokori are the ones looking to make a move. If they can get eyes on this Morphling, if they can lock him down, there's going to be your X. Torrent's going to come through, but the Nightmare, yep, Husky's able to save the day. Kosable is going to fall back. Vitaly, though, look at him go. He's going to pop the Primal Split. They really want to keep this fight going. Stun onto Husky, Tornado onto Morphling. Ghost Ship going to be coming through here. Might hit onto multiple heroes, as they did lock Moo down. Now they get him with the X, but the Spear in exchange is going to lock Yuma out of the fight for a bit. Now he's got to be careful. He's starting to take damage, and that is still a tier 1 tower firing away at them. Looks like Hokori will back themselves out. So, well, I don't know about that one. I mean, you get Husky at the end of the day, but Vitaly popping his ult for 1 kill onto a Bane and the tier 1 tower not going down there is maybe a little bit too expensive for Hokori, and you start seeing them actually backing away. They don't want a second round.
Yeah, they don't want to really deal with that exchange, and I think, again, I believe that what's happening is whenever you're seeing Vitaly use his ultimate, it's the same numbers in terms of what his Brewlings are actually at HP-wise, but you have this change-up with the Drunken Brawler, you have the bonus, and he's getting the evasion bonus, I want to say, from the Storm Brawler 9 times out of 10 here, and it feels like they're not tanky enough. I think maybe we see him use the Earth Brawler instead just a little bit more so he gets some armor, because those Brewlings are dying incredibly quickly, and I think that's where he's getting a little bit scared to actually commit on some of these dives that they've been going for on the Hokori side just because of that change up in the hero. But okay, arena. There you go.
With that shard, the extra stun comes in, no chance for the Primal Split. And now Gunnar's going to go. Inhibit onto Yuma. He's going to be forced to boat defensively. I think that might get him out, but Gardic is kind of left holding the bag here. The Nightmare into the Spear Stun's going to lock him down. Kosable picks up the double kill, 2 for the Morph, and Hokori on the back foot here. They were just a little too spread out when they got caught.
Yeah, and this is the big concern, just giving Costabile more and more time, more and more farm, and as we always say when the safe lane TA is picked up, Scotty's the breaker. This is where you get that item and then suddenly you can't stick around in the fight. You have to play a very tight rope, and Analog going for the BKB, it just means that Hokori's initiation needs to be perfect. Otherwise, you're going to get cleaned up, you're going to get dragged out just inherently by how the Morphling plays. And I think 4-Zoomers have just done a really good job of setting him up specifically. He's been getting all of the gold in really the past 5 minutes or so.
There's always something interesting about the Morphling, because this build already existed in the previous meta, right? You had the right-click or the shotgun build. Those are sort of your two options. The shotgun obviously doesn't really work as much anymore because E-Blade doesn't give you that agi, so now you just switch it up. Now it's just sort of right-click every time, as Z-Freak is not going to get pulled back. Husky, I mean, a half dozen times at this point that Nightmare's been able to sort of pull his teammates out of trouble, and yeah, Z-Freak appreciating the gesture, gives his teammate the tip, and I mean, every time Husky does that, if you can save, you know, a kill every once in a while, that is going to slow momentum on the Hokori side, because they brought multiple heroes in there looking for that pick play. They really don't get anything out of it.
No, instead they kind of have to retreat, and this is also where Hokori, unfortunately, losing their first Aegis in the fashion they did, it means that the push onto the top tier 2 is a little bit slower. It means that even though they have all of this space, working with it is just a little bit too much of a risk, I think, and this is a perfect smoke up. Gunner's clearing the creeps. He's looking for those TA traps and Analog if he's not cautious here. Oh, that's a big arena.
Spear onto Gardic, but not onto Vitali because he got the primal split off, so they're going to try and turn this fight around. Ghost Ship's coming in. Z-Freak is going to be the target. Not a high-value target, though, but you want to get him out of the fight as quickly as possible at this stage, as Gardic buys back, had to TP to the tier 1 top, though, so he's not going to be here immediately, but the fight will continue. Husky taken down by the meld, but they need to be able to lock down these core heroes, and right now that's just not happening. They have, though, sort of maintained control of the high ground at this stage, so it is going to be 4 Zoomers who have to quit the field, but they're okay with that. Support for support and a buyback forced out by Gardic. Roche is still 30 seconds away, so you don't even have that to immediately worry about, and it's kind of just going to be a reset at that point.
Yeah, everybody just walks away. There's not really an easy re-entry point for Hokori. It's one of the problems with the Brewmaster. Even though you have this Aghanim Scepter, you have to take a really long and messy fight. And again, he loses one of his Brewlings pretty much right off the bat. So this hero is not feeling, I think, as tanky as maybe he's hoping it is, because he's just simply eating spells. They're using a lot of their resources on 4 Zoomers, but they can kind of afford to, because until Analog has this BKB, he can't really just output damage in these fights. He has to bide his time and kind of wait for his opportunity to go in, and that's where everybody is kind of itemizing on the same level here. Gunner's going to have a BKB at the exact moment that Analog has his. Yuma, of course, being Kunkka, he already has his BKB, but this Halberd is going to be ever so important, just making sure, I think, that they can kite out these fights, because Hokori, they want these fights to go long. The only person who doesn't is Analog. He's just looking for his opportunities, and that's where pretty early Roche, honestly, for Hokori, but it is a little bit unfortunate that 4 Zoomers are going to amass the Scotty before that fight comes.
It is just about done here for the Morph, as, well, tries to hit up Yuma there, but the X is going to pull the Kunkka back, and now, look at this, Hokori, they're so set up. They've got that high ground. They've got detection really on multiple angles. Hi, Husky. He is immediately going to get taken down, but his teammates do get into the fight. They're going to be able to take down Gardic, but it feels like they're losing a little bit too much here. Moo is going to fall, and Gunner is running out of time on his BKB. Only a second or two left, and he's still surrounded by heroes. Going to have to try and get himself out of here as Husky bought back, looking to come in. Nightmare is going to be thrown onto Yuma, but it's immediately taken away by his teammates, so they can continue their charge forward. Husky's going to die a second time, and now the cores are in a vulnerable position. Just trying to get themselves away. Costabile morphs into the Weaver to use the Shikuchi to get out, but Gunner doesn't have the same luxury. He gets picked off. Yuma finds the kill. Z-Freak now stuck in the tree line, will be taken down by Vitali. The 4 Zoomers, they try to make the most of it, but really, Husky kind of shoots him in the foot a little bit there, just drops down the ward. The second he sees 4 or 5 heroes on the high ground, they try to move, but that wasn't the initiation that they necessarily wanted. It was the one that they were forced into.
Yeah, and Moo still hits. He still gets the spear. Unfortunately, it lands on Garnic instead of Vitali. Maybe then they fight for killing the Brew before that initial split gets off. But at the same time, Costabile was still hitting Creep's bottom. He was still finishing up his Scotty. So I think once they broke contact, they didn't have any burst damage, because that's where 4 Zoomers are still pretty much all in on the Morph. So unfortunately, they find a fight that's just a little bit too large scale for them, and I think that's why it turned so quickly. Not to mention, it's a 45, 50-second long fight, so that's exactly what Hokori want, and this is brutal. Right into the Roche respawn. There's nothing they could do here. and sure, you get the cliff back, but now Hokori, this is their moment to, I don't want to say win the game, but definitely get a lot of space to work with, and Analog just doesn't need to be nearly as afraid. We can definitely see him just immediately commit onto supports, and especially knowing that, well, Husky doesn't have his buyback, there's no more risk in going for just that immediate kill onto him. And I mean, before, he pretty much two-shot the guy, so there's really going to be an emphasis on taking these four Zoomers supports out early, where I think they also need to be really careful. As soon as they go down, Z-Freak, he needs to be getting off multiple blast-offs in these fights. You need to see that setup from the proximity mines. It's where I think in their opponents, Hokori are kind of dragging their opponents around the map, not ever giving them that perfect setup. They're always forcing four Zoomers to come to them. And I think that's why that fight goes so bad. And now we're in kind of the game state we are, where Analog is just able to hit up a lot of these towers.
Yeah, he's going to get pretty aggressive here objective-wise, and he's got even more backup because Gardic, he's able to pick up the shard. The fire shield comes into play, so a lot of the damage that four Zoomers are going to look to hit Analog with to try and get that sort of quick kill is going to be mitigated as Moo. Not a great scenario here. That Nightmare, though, again, Husky is so good on that play. He's going to be able to save it, but now that leads into a potential fight. We've got the Cyclone onto Gunner, but this tree line is going to make things complicated just in terms of maneuvering around, or maybe it isn't. Look at that damage output. Gunner has to pop the BKB, holding the ult for as long as he can, but he held it too long. Tidebringer cleave is going to get the job done. And now without Gunner, this isn't a fight. Four Zoomers just have to back off.
Yeah, they just simply have to run. It's just way too easy to set up if you're Hokori, and I mean, you're a bloodlusted TA sieging, and there's not really much you could do about it. You have the Scotty up on Costa Bile, but now he's feeling like he needs the BKB because, well, if he's all-inning on Analog, then the Brewlings are getting on top of him and just forcing these fights to drag out way too hard. I think that's where Moo needs to find maybe the pecking order here. They need to find the first initial breakout onto Vitali or even Thiliakor at this rate, but they just need to find someone first, and Thiliakor, he is incredibly farmed on this position for Weaver. He has an Orchid, so post-fight, once you use that Manta, especially on Costa Bile, you need to be so careful about just getting near those tree lines, because if Costa Bile gets caught off guard and catch him without his morph, well, hey, you're just dead until he finishes up this BKB. I think that's why he's going back for it, but unfortunately, well, BKB is great and all, but it's no more damage, it's no more survivability, and playing against this much anti-armor, there are a lot of problems that four Zoomers have to fix in the next few minutes here. Not to mention, full Daedalus almost completed by Analog, and then suddenly anyone is going to die, especially Gunner, who really doesn't have that much more time to farm.
And now, I mean, you take a look at what Hokori are building up. You talked about the silence from, from the Weaver. The BKBs become less valuable because you see Analog, he got the shard, I think, back from that Roche attempt. So he can now silence up as well. So this is a situation where Hokori can hold a lot of their lockdown, wait out the BKBs whenever they do come forward, and then just continue to dish out damage like this as Moo gets isolated, and that's just an easy pick. No way for the Mars to survive that.
Yeah, and it really is just that brutal, and I think Moo, yeah, doesn't have his BKB either. It's where four Zoomers, they just need to find a pickoff or a fight so they have the space to farm, because they're starting to fall behind item-wise against their opponents here, and you see them making a split towards the top jungle, trying to, again, get a little bit more net worth underneath their belt, but with two waves in, well, hey, Analog's going to be on your tier 3 in a few seconds here, and there really isn't a full defense mounted yet, so this is free damage, and, okay, nice little torrent clips on the Costa Bile, but that's your tier 3 pretty much chunked all the way down, and Moo's not going to buy back, so nobody's going to come in here. Now, what do they react here? Again? Oh, no! Didn't trust his teammate there. I think Husky had the save, but that's a huge expenditure. No BKB. I can't imagine Gunner's going to actually show up towards this fight now. I think they might have to sack the bottom racks, because that is a huge ability, a huge item timing to give up, and yeah, they're just going to split. They know their advantage here, and I think this is just going to be free.
Power's already gone. Ghost ship's coming in, really not to start anything, just to cover, as they're pushing their way through. That's the whole lane of racks taken. They just stunned up the Starlight. They've got him with the Cyclone now as well, but it looks like they're just going to back off. They got what they wanted. Full lane of racks, no casualties, and an Aegis timing out in a few seconds. So they didn't want to stick around just in case something crazy happens there with that timing. Probably the safer choice on their part, but Looking at that four zoomer side now, 13k down, lane of racks taken, BKB starting to dwindle on duration. Something's got to give. They either need to make a move and find a kill, or they're just going to get bled to death.
No, and I think that's why they smoke up here. They know that they're only playing versus one of the splits. Yuma,
Is that a
in Yuma
scythe?
fashion, yeah, he's done this before on his Kunkka, just more lockdown to set up, but they only get Gardic, and sure, this is going to assist you in farming up a few more of your items. Kostabile has his BKB. I don't think Gunner's really going to find this Ags all too easily, especially if Hokori can get another push up in time. But it's the remainder of Hokori who have been able to split across the map. Of course, talked about it already, Scythe pickup from Yuma, putting an incredible threat now on both the Troll and the Morphling. If they don't get that BKB off, there's a very real possibility they just die.
Look at this man. Look at the mind games. He is dropping the scythe when he X's himself so that when he pushes the wave, four zoomers won't actually see that he has it.
He's trying to catch someone off guard with the smoke that I can only imagine they're going to look for pretty soon. And that could be game winning because for Zoomers, you know they're not playing around their buybacks this stage of the game. I think Kostabile almost inadvertently has his just because he's looking for his next item, but everyone else is playing with a very tight amount of gold here, and it's where you buy one or two components building towards your next set, and then suddenly the game just ends because you are building yourself up where your opponents are not giving you nearly as much space as you think they are. And Kostabile, that could be the lead-in.
The silence comes in. He's hexed before he can BKB. Can they kill him off in time, though? Kostabile, he does get the BKB off. He's going to try and turn around and fight, but Moo went in for the arena. He's already dead. The Morphling now doesn't have any backup. He has to try and get away. Morphing into the Weaver, Shikuchiing himself out, but Yuma doesn't want to give up on the chase. Throws out the Torrent, clipping onto the Morphling. He's shifting to strength as fast as he can. Z-Freak even coming in for the stun, but it only hit onto Theolacor. And Kostabile cannot be saved. They'll lose him. Theolacor dies, but if you're Hokori, well, mission accomplished. Theolacor dies for the cause. They get two huge kills in ET, as you said. The Morphling sort of inadvertently having buyback because of his build-up, and now I think he may have to use this buyback because they're still coming. Vitali's going to pop the Primal Split again. He's out of charges now, but he finished off a refresher before that fight, so he's not out of charges at all.
Yeah, he's got the brutal 4 push. But
Careful.
yeah, oh no.
Not careful. He's going to get hit up by the Hex, and they should have the damage to kill him off. BKB first. You needed the Battle Trance instead. I don't think he saw the projectile until it was too late, but on the other side, Analog, he's dropping low. That's a nice spear back. They'll kill him, and they'll get Vitali. So you salvage something on the back end there, but some big buybacks had to be expended.
Will Roche be kind? That's the question here.
40 seconds.
And no. We'll have to see. Yeah, 40 seconds. That's honestly a little bit unfortunate. It does mean that 4 Zoomers will probably get this tier 2 mid while they have to wait. But hey, that's your punish. You got Analog without his BKB. You were able to find the easy kill onto the TA, but Kostabile and Gunner both not having buyback. Now it's gotten even tighter. It's one death and then suddenly you're gone there. But you saw how easily, and the Hex lead in from Yuma, it's why he went for it. It's brutal. And Gunner, he has to make the impossible decision where do you ulti before you know you're going to get stunned just so that way you don't die in the chain, or do you try and get that really tight timing? Unfortunately, Husky just had his hands tied with the brew, so he wasn't able to get the Nightmare save, but this is still quite a rough position to be in if you're 4 Zoomers, and with the Roche timer, they just unfortunately go to the other side of the map, and hey, 30 seconds on TA, they can definitely start it, but they need to be really quick here, and they also need to hope that Hokori don't mount any sort of kind of poke play, because if they delay them a little bit too long, Anon gets back into the fight, and this looks really hairy, but here we go, third Roche, they're going to start it. They got to go fast.
Getting it going. Nice start, but their progress is already starting to slow a little bit. The scan comes through. Hokori knows this is happening. There's going to be the swarm being thrown into the pit, and Vitali's preemptively going to ult. They get the Hex onto Husky, so there's not going to be any sort of Nightmare or Fiend's Grip play. Gunner dropped low, has to pop the BKB. Roche still not very low, though. This is going to get a little bit dicey, but Gunner wants to fight. There's a Battle Trance getting in onto Gardic. He's going to root him in place, but the stun is there for the turnaround. Boo coming in, dropping the arena into the spear, locking down the Kunkka, but they still need to save Gunner. Husky doing his best with the Nightmare, and for now it's going to be enough. Yuma's actually the one to go down. He'll buy back immediately, but Gunner is still on the run. The DOT's on him. Vitali is just going to chase after, and Gunner's dead with no buyback. Now the pressure turns onto the Morphling, really ramping it up here. They'll lock him down with the X into the Torrent, and they've got him. Vitali with the double. That Fiend's Grip is far too late from Husky. And that may just be the end of it, really. Hokori can take Roshan and just barrel their way down the lane. And there's no buybacks on your two main cores for 4 Zoomers, so this defense is nigh impossible for them to pull off.
Yeah, at the very least, it's going to be Mega Creeps. We could see Hikori go for that is definitely the safer option, I want to say, but I mean, they just had more buybacks to throw. They had more gas in the tank. I think Gunner, again, so early on is he forced to use his BKB, his abilities, and for Zoomers, they instead choose to take the fight, try to get the kills before the TA shows up, but then there's not even that kind of butt punching play where who gets the Aegis, who gets the Roche, the fight gets dragged so far away from him that, well, there's nothing you can do. It's just a cleanup after the fact for Hokori, because as soon as the TA shows up, there's really not much that Costa Bila could do. The anti-armor's there, and honestly, I think they might just go for, yeah, the mid-rex into the GG, just having the creeps down to assist them. They've got the cards, they have the shield. I think they're really worse for wear when it comes to damage. I don't think Force Zoomers can hold this. They're going to try, but, oh,
that Nightmare, unfortunately for, I think maybe the first time in the game, was a little mistimed, so Z-Freak will get taken down. Mu is giving it his all here, trying to take down Yuma. Second time, he's just not going to get it. And that should be the end of it. Mu will buy back, but there's really nothing left for him to do. The Ancient's exposed, and it will go down as Hokori are going to take game 1.
Yeah, and hey, 1-1 is exactly what they would have looked for Hokori, but if they could 2-0 for Zoomers, that would set them apart from the pack. They would feel very safe with their position now.
Yeah, as you said, 1 point was all that they technically needed. They do now move into sole possession of first place, at least temporarily. But yeah, now you got what you needed. Now you can afford to maybe start thinking a little bit more, a little bit more greedily, and try and get that 2-0 to really solidify their position. So very well played by Hokori and ET. It feels weird, right? Seeing this Hokori team, we mentioned repeatedly, we've seen them so many times in Pro Series. It has been every single time the same thing we say at the end of their runs. They have so much potential, but they need consistency. We'll see if they can get better the next time around, blah, blah, blah. This is next time around. They have finally hit the mark. They are playing at a level that I don't think we've ever seen from this team before.
No, they're really doing a fantastic job. Hope it keeps up once we get into that playoff stage, but again, four Zoomers are killing me a little bit here. Just shoving Gunner as soon as that lane, or rather the game counter comes, it just sucks to see him on the troll because he was, again, helpless. He can't make plays. He is trying to be your mid laner. You try to have this advantage, and hey, they all in on Costa Bila, and given a little bit more space and a little bit more time, I think maybe they find the victory. But man, it sucks to see a player as talented as him just forced to take really the short end of the stick. I mean, he's been forced to play troll. He's been forced to play the gyrocopter, as I said before. Just give him a spirit, give him some gunner heroes, I think, and you're going to be much happier, because when four Zoomers have that secondary playmaker, it feels like everything is lifted off of them. There's so much less pressure on especially Mu to perform, and it feels like when Mu does miss, everything just whiffs for four Zoomers. I think they're just a little bit too all in on Costa Bila for this draft.
Yeah, that domino effect really sort of coming into play. Gunner can't make as many moves, so now all the pressure's on Mu. And to Mu's credit, he is very much capable of just straight up carrying a game for his team, but in this instance, it felt like it was a little bit too much to put on his shoulders, and like you said, the all-in on the morph play. 8-2 and 5 is not a bad stat line, but that is not 1v5 territory. So on the four Zoomer side, they need to make a change. I think they're trying to get a little too cute with it with these drafts. As you said, just put Gunner on something that's going to be more conventional and more comfortable.
Yeah, we'll see what game 2 holds for us, but yeah, I really think that maybe just get Gunner on a spirit, see if they could do one of their openings where it's just immediately trying to get him Storm, or even just picking up the Omni. I'm surprised that we saw that hero get no love in this draft, but that's where game 2, gotta see what happens.
Yeah, game 2 is going to need to see some adjustments from that four Zoomer side. They can still salvage that 1-1 draw and move their way up the standings a bit. So we are going to be stepping away for just a moment here, but when we come back, it will be game 2 between Hokori and four Zoomers. So stick around, back in just a bit.